Welcome to ELOL. Just kidding.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and frankly, anything in between, and welcome to another attempt at a Teamfight Tactics video. This is actually going to be my first video on Teamfight Tactics Set 2, and my god, has a lot happened since I left. Well, I didn't leave, but I had to get accustomed and acclimatized to the new set because, frankly, I haven't gotten it all down yet. And we'll see how it goes when we get into the game, especially the whole multitasking thing of watching your screen, talking about something that may or may not be on your screen, combined with playing TFT actually. So nothing but mad respect for the YouTubers out there, because I'm already starting missing my first beat. No, nailed it. So I love Set 2. I really do. I have to admit, I was fairly skeptical before I came into this set, being all like, why do you have to change a good thing? Is the game going to be the same? Will you demand of us to study way too hard to get back into a video game that we already committed hours to the first time? But honestly, the innovations they did, tile set, visual updates, the whole thing on the side with extra information, the sidebars, the battle stats, I love it. It made it both more complex and more fun at the same time, and that is a commendable effort, especially because let's see, for now I'm just going to the tanks, especially because TFT now has less of a linear identity, whereas set 1 was all about you commit early, you choose and you let loose, and you just try to steadily build and force a comp. Set 2 gives you the option with Woodland Druids, with Predators, with any 3 synergy actually, to go for an early game, build either econ or invest into that, and then have a transition phase, which on the one hand makes decision making harder, because at what point do you transition? Do you value levels? Do you value content instead? Current champs? So it made it less easy, less predictable in a sense, but also just more enjoyable. It feels like you have more room to choose and do stuff. So yeah, I really have to commend them for what they did. It is really nice to play now. It does, however, it already reared its ugly head at times, with ocean mages being very prevalent at high levels, and me personally getting wildly frustrated at any Olaf 2 running off again against 3 4v1ing even. So it's not perfect. It absolutely is not perfect, but I like it. I'm having a boatload of fun with it. Really am. Let's see. So now either desert or woodland druids. Let's start out with woodland druids just for once. In the meantime, my Maokai is really stepping up. Yeah, I have nothing I want to put a static or a recurve on just yet. So yeah, we're back. We're in Teamfight Tactics Set 2. It's a mountain map. I enjoy it because it allows you to scout some hyper carries. It enables it. Whereas the cloud, on the one hand, you want to love it because you get a Kiana on the cloud, which is a viable setup, and cloud is a fun synergy, but it's rarely usable other times. But Iceborne Gauntlet just feels mandatory, and whenever in a game like this, where it's supposed to be more rock paper scissors style, you suddenly wind up with mandatory builds. You kind of take away the charm, because there's 8 people fighting for what you have. So, cloud map, sure, I get the idea behind it. It can be really fun. In practice, sadly, it rarely is. It rarely is. Am I ditching one woodland druid for... Because right now we have 3 druids, right? So let's put it like this. She always benefits from a recurve bow. And I'm considering possibly egg rolling. I'm not sure yet. in which case I'd have to ditch the Kog'Maw. I might egg roll, we'll see how much the lobby fancies it. Now, what I wanted to do today, and I'll see if I can properly multitask it with the gameplay, is, as promised earlier in the setup of this channel, talk about non-TFT related topics as well. Maybe in the future I'll try some other things within the game, but today I wanted to talk about a movie, actually. I watched it with a friend on Friday. It's The Irishman. Out on Netflix, Martin Scorsese's latest gangster epos effort, with 3 hours and 20 something minutes, a hell of a long ride. An enjoyable ride, sure, but, and I'm gonna try not to spoil the contents too much, but how can you talk about a movie without spoiling at least some stuff? I had some issues with it. I have to admit, I really did. It's good. It looks very pretty. It's a very visual thing, but for as long as the runtime of the movie is, it tries to captivate you with the names of the actors, with the setup, with the visuals, but it doesn't really try to catch you with how the story builds. As you know, in any stories you have protagonists, antagonists, and a curve your characters go on, whether it's a learning curve or a curve of descent, and it's built up along moments of that show the true colors of your actors. Being in the good sense or the bad sense. As Deadpool would say, it only takes 5 moments to make yourself a hero. Well, then a movie is supposed to show you those moments. And however pretty it was and however nice it was to see De Niro back in action in not a mockery of himself, it never really felt like there was a true arc to it that built any tension. There were arcs, there really were arcs to the characters, especially to the main character. It wasn't the arc you initially expect, because you run along for the ride and it's all about the possible death of Jimmy Hoffa, and what part our main character did or did not play in it. But eventually, because if you pause the movie and events occur, at some point you mentally feel like, okay, story is over, main story is over, and then you jump back to old guy Frank Sheeran, and that is to me where the meat of the movie lies. Strangely enough, a movie that has all of these historical characters, all of the brilliance in it, has its weight and its relevance in its final part, where you're looking at age-old Robert De Niro, because it's a story about a moral descent, I think. I'm not sure yet. I don't know exactly what the Scorsese intended with it. I'm never going to pretend I would. But it's supposed to be a morality tale and a love letter to the gangster genre, the mafia genre, the mob genre. But honestly, it feels a bit flat. And it might have to do with De Niro's acting, which could be on purpose. You know, Frank Sheeran might have been more of a toned down, dull out character. And there is one phone call, I'm not going to dive any deeper into it, but there is one phone call where you really feel the depth that they want to bring and they could bring. But it stops there, it sticks there, and you want more of that in your movie. You somehow want... now I gotta watch out. Either you build a story with arcs of tension and release, you know, you build up to a climax reached, you build down again, the aftermath of the climax, you build up to the next climax, and so on. So either you do that, or you build a character study, or a grand epic where you just look at things, your mouth falls open, Michael Bay style, and you don't wonder about either character development or plot development. But from any other type of movie, you would expect to be invested because you build up towards the tension and then it releases again. And this movie never shows that. at least in my opinion and my experience, you never get a tremoring sense, which the mob genre is perfect to do. I mean, if you see, and Scorsese does this wonderfully with these kind of the visual undercards, he shows when people you're genuinely watching in the movie die. You convey that feeling of you can die at any second, and you got yourself one hell of a movie. You're just watching a conversation between two Italians or whatever, and you're on the edge of your seat because you realize the outcome of this talk could show someone dying. And that's why the mob genre is so thankful, and yet somehow that suspense is taken away. I don't know if you get deadbeat by the length of the movie, where you feel like, okay, someone might die, but look, we still have 2 hours of movie left, or it's because of the more dulled down performances they asked or whatnot. But the lack of tension arcs can be done. You can say like this is art house, but in order for it to be proper art house, it doesn't go far enough, in my opinion, in some other directions. It doesn't go balls deep enough, and I just gotta watch out for my rerolls here, because we are somewhat trying to donkey roll it out. So wait a second, you go here. Okay, we're getting closer to the edge. Do we go Diana for... Yeah, we can combine it. Do we store lock? Wait a second, I think we do like this, and then we... we got a store lock. Damn it, I never intended to. Wait a second, who can we put in? So a Diana, possibly. There we go. And now I should actually stop rolling, right? Because we got the two LeBlancs. I think I might have made a mistake somewhere around here. Yeah, let's leave it at that for now. And go for either the Frozen Heart. Yeah, Hand of Justice. So, yeah, for to demand of people to watch a 3.5-hour movie without claiming it's a documentary, because I saw some ads and some trailers popping up, and it is marketed as a suspenseful movie, but you don't bring suspense. Again, not a disaster, but somehow it doesn't feel like it's in its right spot, if any one of you gets what I mean. So I love the actors, I love the nostalgia. I don't have enough of a backstory because I am from Belgium. I'm not American. I wasn't there on the front row when everything went down what they spoke of, but to me it just dropped the ball, in the sense that you stop the movie, and normally a movie lingers with me, and to me that's a good sign. If I re-paraphrase conversations in my head, or you get your heart pumping, or just a feeling of sadness, if it drags an emotion out of you after the post-credit scene, and you want to sit in your chair and just bathe in it a little longer, being it action, suspense, fear, whatnot, that's what makes for me a good movie. Comedies, of course, adhere to a different genre, but still, they offer you a sense of, in an American Pie style, nostalgia. You wish you could back to those careless times where virginity was the biggest factor in your life, and it just... I just gotta watch out here. It just doesn't do that. You watch it, you finish it, and you're like, okay, mission accomplished. And I have nothing against long-term commitment. I mean, I, as a youngster, read 900-page books. I love documentaries. I can marathon if need be. But somehow this movie didn't capture me, and I'm not going to say because of its longevity, but despite its longevity. If you can make someone sit there for 3 hours and a half and watch, you would expect that the 3.5 hours you invest into it come back in a return minutes, hours, days later, and it just doesn't hit the mark. It just doesn't fit the bill, which is a shame because I didn't want to be down on this movie. I really didn't. I'm glad Netflix did what they did. I'm glad they attracted Scorsese. I'm glad they attracted the amount of money, put in the amount of money they did. It shows that streaming platforms, because they work off of their subscribers more so than off their instant revenue, they're allowed to take risks. They're the reason that we have amazing stuff like BoJack Horseman, which could gather a following over some years. It gives us Rick and Morty in Europe at a reasonable pace. So streaming platforms do have a sense of liberty that some studios don't. So I commend them for what they did, and I'm hoping they will do the same thing in the future. But in its execution, to me, it just fell a little flat. It didn't feel miserable. It didn't feel like a waste of time. Absolutely not. But it feels as if it could have been even more. And it's a bit of a shame. Now I'm just going to try and get up to 50. And then, because this guy, I can't plug him in. I can't take him out either. Is anyone donkey rolling actually? Slight version of it. No. Lots of Annies already. Some lights. Another woodland druid guy. Okay, he's doing what I'm doing, right? And he has more gold than I currently have. But if I can renect in 3, I should be golden here, because that boy with the healing, the damage, and the tankiness, woo, good luck biting through that one. So yeah, I love streaming platforms. I like what they did to the space, although I'm going to try to dive into that a little more in a quick minute. They do what they do, and they do it well. And yet somehow this one left me hungry. This one left me somewhat dissatisfied. Also, the expectations were high, and I think rightfully so. If you can attract the names, if you can attract the following it did. Well, we have our first 3-star, which is a good start. Yeah, we're not going to do that. But I just hope for a bit more in the future. So yeah, that is my review. You gotta admit, acting was, depending on who was on screen, anywhere between good and amazing. The setting feels fun. It feels kind of nostalgic to movies of old, especially in the barrage of superhero movies we have at times, which I don't want to harp or hate on. I like superhero movies. I watch them to turn my brain off and have a good time. But there's obviously more to the entertainment space than them. And we got our 3-star. Let's see, 100. That's Spear of Shoshin territory, right? Combine it with another tier. We're going good here. And now it's a question of, do I go for the 3 assassins or do I stay for the Renekton first? Because Renekton, with the items I did drop them, should be a pivotal part. And I like 5 copies of him. So yeah, all in all, for as much complaints as I haven't because the expectations were so high. I was going in expecting this would be a 9 and 9.5, maybe a classic to come, and I left it. I had a good time, but I never felt like I witnessed a classic. I witnessed a classic, someone with the ambition of a classic. Awesome. But I didn't see a classic in the making, and that's a bit of a pity. Because it should have been. It really should have been. The cast, the idea behind it, the fact that it's Netflix challenging the big boys on the, well, Netflix has turned into a big boy himself, but it could and maybe should have been so much more than it currently was. So I will still give it at least a 7. I mean, you don't know my scale, so what do you know what I mean by a 7? But to me, it still was and is a 7 out of 10 at least. But I expected more from it. Also, I would just wonder how they get their revenue back since they push so much into it. But I guess Netflix has its numbers figured out. Apologies, all the talking made me thirsty. Now to continue on that, I do like, well, I'm gonna ditch those two, maybe go for the econ if I win. Let's see, another tier, another Spear Shojin, maybe a Ludens if I get to it, would be amazing. Static, a little less so. But to continue on that, I liked streaming platforms, especially coming to Europe, where we have good content, we have great content, and we have US content, but we don't always get the US content at the same time. For instance, it was only the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones where our Belgian providers proudly said, you can watch them at almost the same time as they release in the US. Instead of, you know, it doesn't feel like a valid alternative to illegal streaming if you would have to wait 2 months, because people that do illegally stream it might spoil it for you on the train the next day, and hell, even news outlets would spoil it and be like, oh my god, the internet is going crazy over this part of Game of Thrones or over this part of House of Cards. And I wanted to set, obviously. Could be my assassin. I could put a GA on him maybe if I have another BF sword. Good. Maybe squeeze in some summoners somehow. So I like streamers for that part. I like that streamers try to bring out original content. I just picked up Atypical, a movie, a comedy, between brackets, about an autistic guy and his, we could say, almost equally dysfunctional family, I guess, trying their way to work their way through dating in the modern life and whatnot, from an autist's point of view. And this didn't do it, so we're going right over here. Let's do it like this, and make them attack seemingly the same targets. They gave us stuff from other regions like Dark. It's German. I haven't watched it myself personally yet. It's on my to-do list, but it has rave reviews. It brought us Luther and Sherlock. So and I'm not just singing the praise of Netflix, but it's the only one that I have first-hand experience on. It is really good, and streaming platforms are really good. Because they're so marketable, so profitable, there are other players like Disney Plus, like Apple Plus, that jump onto it. And I don't know from the US experience, but at least from our experience, the idea behind the streaming platform was, okay, I can sit back, I can relax, I have a platform where I can watch all kinds of my favorite entertainment for one price, because honestly at home I don't own a television anymore. I stream, I watch on YouTube, and I watch it from the screen, but I don't have a regular cable television anymore. And if I need something like news outlets, I also find them online. So to go from that to a competitive streaming market where you have HBO, Apple Plus, etc., and they all try and broadcast their own stars, their own new content, especially with Disney, because they have such a big library already. It's kind of scary that it might defeat its purpose. As in, you no longer have a platform per se, but it's like owning a television channel, which frankly is worse than owning a television. Okay, this is good because I can still plug them in for the electrics. Perfect. So maybe I should sell the Kazakhs at some point. We'll see. So, and I'm saying so a lot because I lose my train of thought while I'm talking, be at on the gameplay, and then I get my train of thought back when I watched the game again. Let's see if we can plug in the bear at 8. So the idea would be to now put in 2 electrics. Right. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Iceborne. Trap Claw is good. Trap Claw is real good. Let's see.
Should fear me.
And that's a red buff or a thorn. So we're putting a Trap Claw on the Z. Still waiting on that BSR though. I have to constantly juggle, and maybe I should do the voiceover in post instead of in-game. But so to come back to my point, it feels like owning a TV channel instead of owning an alternative to the TV. And frankly, that sucks. And I know in Belgium, such as in possibly other regions, that honestly might turn people off from streaming platforms instead of turning them onto them by being like, yeah, we have a more competitive portfolio for you to watch from. No, you just took away what we liked about you, and Netflix can't handle it, and frankly, none of the players in it are per se to blame. But it's just a natural development of the market, I assume. Well, I just need a bit more. Yeah, I just need a little bit more. Is my placement off? No, it should be fine, right? He's protecting there. He can soak most of the damage. Yeah, let's do it like this. And sadly, the egg rolling didn't come through entirely, because this should have been a 3-star. That should have been a 3-star. And if we assume that this won't work, we might sell it later. And I might not have much time to finish my point on streaming platforms either. So, to be short, I don't know if the diversification of streaming platforms... Am I out? I totally got caught by surprise. I'm terribly sorry. We're gonna keep in there because I want to just wrap up my point. But luckily this wasn't a ranked player. Yeah, so in short, The Irishman might be a showcase of what streaming platforms can do in terms of marketability, attracting names, being an alternative to movie theater outlets, showing certain types of ambition, being less caught on release dates. Because honestly, they could push it back on Netflix for a month and no movie studio will bat an eye. Who cares, right? But there's room, and it's a showcase of what streaming platforms might be in a good sense. But on the other hand, the market is evolving in a way that streaming platforms could take a downturn instead of an upturn by the diversification and adding so many others to that. And yeah, that's my sadly way too short take on both The Irishman as a miniature review and streaming platforms as a whole. And I guess the fact that I turned out 7th was because I didn't sell the LeBlanc fast enough, didn't put in another level, get the extra electric, get the extra body that could die, possibly search for the Z2 on the higher level. So I know where I go wrong, I just didn't act in time, and I totally get that. And I would like to apologize to anyone who came to me for high level, high-end gameplay, and I'll put it in the title, I'll put it in the thumbnail, so it won't happen again. That you got baited by, oh my god, we're going to see a great outplay, just to realize I didn't see a great outplay at all. I just watched mediocre stuff. But this was my first attempt, my first foray, as they would say in French, into a more podcast style Teamfight Tactics video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm not going to leave you yet, because I just want to finish up some more gameplay. I guess some of you might have been watching this and be like, oh my god, I want to know how this finished. So yeah, I have a little thing I want to try. I'm not sure if it's going to work this video or the next one, but I might give it a shot in every single game I'm currently putting on video, and it is to give it a first attempt at shoutcasting a game on the board. Well, we see that the number one guy with his 6 lights and 2 rangers, which I frankly thought was outdated, but we have Woodland Druids with only 1 3-star. Woodland Druid's part is worse off than mine. His Blade Master part is good, but yeah, especially with the on-hit effects on the Sivir, that's really strong. The Master Yi only being a 1-star, and repeating crossbow is bad here, because you want your Yi to be the carry, so I put the item on it that you hope dies. But yeah, let's get into it. So we're up at 3 Woodlands, 2 Druids, Blade Masters, and we're up against the 6 Lights, 2 Rangers, and we're off to the races. In the beginning it's very difficult, but we see that the Zephyr in the backline is dropping. There is no front line, and the Light team is simply melting through. The Vayne is untouched, the Kindred is untouched, but are we seeing a comeback? The on-hits from the Sivir, they really show no mercy, and yep, we have our first miniature upset over here. The top might no longer be the top. Watch who's coming, always watch your back, because frankly, that's where you get the knives in if you get stabbed. Thank you very much for watching. I'm not going to play this out until the end because I would have to film another 10 minutes, and I so neatly wrapped up the current topics. I just want to leave you guys with one more quote from the biggest little badass in League of Legends, and that it is Vigar. Know that if the tables were turned, I would show no mercy. That was abysmal. I'll work on my Vigar for next time. Thank you very much for tuning in, and see you guys later. Bye bye.